the Indian side didn't really realize that they were up against not Pakistan, but Pakistan and China. So that's the thing. And as a consequence of that, I believe that the Indian response to the Pahalgam massacre was disproportionate. Now, this is very important. What this means is that they did the proxy war, we lost lives in Pahalgam. So, this is terrorism. Terrorism is what we call the sub conventional operations. And as a response, what we did is we went completely overboard and we did the conventional operations, and that too at the high end. Because when you use air power, and especially between India and Pakistan in the next war, air power will be the leading element of war. So, the second point that I want to make is disproportionate is very important because to their terrorism, we responded with the high end of conventional war. So people around the world understand all these things. That's the second point. The third point is that there is no doubt about it that in the air war, as far as this combination was concerned of China and Pakistan in terms of weapon systems, their J-10 and the PL-15 missile, it did a very good job. And this is perhaps the reason that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan, hesitates to give out the numbers of the aircraft which have been shot down. You see, when he spoke to the Bloomberg journalist, he said, "I don't want to put the number," conceding that yes, aircraft have gone down. You see, so if it was only one aircraft, he would have conceded it. The reason is, if it was only, and in my assessment, this combination did very well of J-10 and PL-15, which is the reason that today Indonesia also is considering seriously of buying the J-10. Then we also saw that after that night, which is the sixth, seventh night, we saw that the stock of the makers or the manufacturers of J-10, which is the Chengdu Aerospace Corporation, it shot up. Now, all these things don't happen if there is only one aircraft which has come down. And the reason is very obvious why the CDS doesn't want to accept the losses is because if he accepts that, then he's also accepting, which is a very dangerous thing, the limitations of the Indian Air Force. And when I say limitations, please understand this is for the benefit of your viewers, because what we are talking about here are the BVRs, beyond visual range missiles. Now, beyond visual range missile, which fire at a very long range, what is important is the digital ecosystem which is backing them. There is a huge digital ecosystem that backs them. If you remember, there was a briefing given by the Pakistan Air Force officer, Air Marshal Aurangzeb Ahmed, to the international press, where he said that now the Pakistan Air Force has got a new war fighting doctrine, which he called multi-domain operations. Now, what that means is that is the digital ecosystem, and that comprises of you have your satellites, you have your airborne assets, you have your ground assets, you have your fighters, and everything is linked with their Link 17. Now, so when you have a fighter which is firing a BBR, then there is an ecosystem which is helping him. So if there are more kills on the Indian side, it would mean that the ecosystem of the other side was better. An ecosystem takes many years to build. It's not only putting together, it's about professional training. So I am just giving you the reasoning behind all this. This is my thinking that all this would not have happened. Indonesia wanting to buy them, stocks going up if there was only one aircraft. But as when the Bloomberg journalist asked the CDS that did 6 aircraft come down, he says, no, it is not that. So we accept the CDS point of view here, but certainly it was more than one. See, the point is that they had to accept something because this is the start point. Because as far as the Pakistan side was concerned, they gave the briefing within 48 hours to the international media. And after that, the entire international media knew what's going on. The Americans knew what is going on. Chinese knew what is going on. See, this is not the age of commercial satellites, what CDS said, that we'll have the commercial site. This is the age of real time intelligence by satellites, and the Chinese have those capabilities. So, what went down is known to everybody except our own people. So, at some stage, for the credibility of India, they had to accept something. So, he accepted that. Now, obviously, it's a narrative which is not helpful for the image of the government. But the point here is that the government should have, first of all, thought about it, that this disproportionate response, is it helping us? Now, this is important. On the one hand, it was disproportionate response, and on the other hand, if the political objective was to end the proxy war of Pakistan, I don't think that has been accomplished. If the military aim was to create a deterrence against the Pakistan military, it has not been accomplished. And the most important thing is, we earlier also used the air power, which was in 2019 Balakot air attacks. Then also the limitations of our air force were exposed. Now they are further exposed. So what are we getting out of it? Only the government knows that. What is going on is, in my assessment, that when the Prime Minister came to power in May of 2014, that is the time the Air Force Chief was with the name of Air Chief Marshal Arup Raha. And since then, the Air Force has been seeking a sub-conventional role for the Air Force. You see, that you also want to, because the Army is doing a sub-conventional role. So starting from Arup Raha, all the Air Force chiefs have been wanting a sub-conventional role, that Air Force should be used in this role, which is wrong. Because we are talking of a modern war here. On the other hand, we did not understand a very simple thing, that right from 5th August 2019, when we revoked 370 and 35A from Jammu and Kashmir, Chinese leadership has been consistently saying at all the levels that we will support Pakistan's sovereignty and security. What that means is that the two militaries, the PLA and the Pakistan military, had actually started intensive exercises, which is joint exercises against a very clear enemy. So what is going on is that we did not understand all that. We wanted a role at the lower end. Now, all these things, when you want to fight a modern war, it is not about only weapon systems. It is also about optimizing the weapon system, that is called war concept. And it is also about years of training. It doesn't happen in a jiffy that today you say, okay, I'm buying Rafales, so I become powerful. No, you don't. It is not only Rafales, how do you use the Rafales? How do you use the Rafales with the other systems? And what sort of training you have done? What sort of understanding you have of electronic warfare? You see, these things are important. We saw in Balakot very clearly that the Pakistan Air Force displayed better electronic warfare capabilities. So we should have understood that in a modern war, electronic warfare is very important. Because if you can jam the enemy's communication, there is trouble. How do you do the operation if the communication are jammed? I mean, we faced it in 2019, which is why our pilot, our squadron leader, he was made prisoner of war. So we should have learned that lesson. Instead, the Indian Air Force leadership is saying that we should have a role in counter-terror operations, sub-conventional operations. And see, on top of that, you listen to the present Air Force chief. I actually sympathize with him, Air Chief Marshal AP Singh. He said openly that, look, the DRDO and the HAL, they have not met any of the timelines. Now, on the one hand, you want to do Atmanirbharta at a time when there is a big crisis at hand. He was expressing his helplessness at his reduced combat capabilities, his squadrons. You see, even if the private players come, nothing will happen, in a day or 2 days. It takes time.